Now, who knew Complex was going to cause all this drama, man? So it all started. Complex comes out and puts out the list of the most influential people in media or podcasts, when it comes to hip-hop, most influential with hip-hop. Joe Budden gets the number one. Man. Academics get number 2, Charlemagne gets number 3, and a bunch of other names on there. Sure, Wallow and Gilly on there. Sure, Rory on there. But essentially, the big drama this week was about Joe Budden being number 1. So first, Envy comes out and says something, DJ Envy, and he stands up for his guy Charlemagne the God, and DJ Envy saying Breakfast Club being as big as it is, Charlemagne having his own little network thing in his shows, and pretty much DJ Envy saying Charlemagne should be number 1. Then we get to some smack talking from Taxstone, who, even though Joe Budden has been bigging up Taxstone and saying free Taxstone and doesn't like Troy Ave either, Taxstone still comes out and says that Joe Budden is a manipulator. He manipulated Rory and Mal. He's manipulating his new team, Ice-Ish, Melissa Ford, Queens Flip, Parks too. He said he was manipulating all them and just pretty much was talking bad on Joe. So clearly Taxstone has not gone over that time when Joe Budden walked out on his podcast after Tax was asking some crazy questions and was being a little disrespectful. People always forget about that part. But of course, the icing on the cake was when Rory and Mal talked about the list on their podcast, and Mal got a little spicy with Joe. Rory wasn't really saying too much, but Mal is calling Joe the thief, the cat burglar, talking about the image that they use of Joe looking on the distance. They said, look, he's looking where else he gonna steal from next. So Joe Budden, Joe Beezy, jump off, had to come out and say something. So Joe went off about everybody in his famous "To Whom It May Concern" rant, is what we calling it, right? And Joe starts spazzing on people. He talking about Taxstone, you mess up your stuff and you need to know where not to be out at, where not to go when you get in this bag. He talking about people building up companies and not really building up themselves. He went in about Charlemagne losing his show and the relevancy of the Breakfast Club being at an all-time low, which I cannot disagree with. The Breakfast Club is not doing so high right now. But the most scathing stuff came from his former co-host, Rory and Mal, came for them. When Joe just went in about pretty much how they the bare minimum boys, they got their check, they do the least amount of work, they have lost all type of interest in their product, and just did them bad. So then Rory comes out on their podcast and just completely tries to flip the script on Joe Budden and honestly trying to gaslight, man, because enough people not arguing this point hard enough. I think I've heard people say it, but not hard enough. Rory's coming out like Joe just randomly start going off on them. And Rory's saying that Joe Budden's obsessed with him and Mal, and Joe Budden is using them, for a press run and talking about them. And I'm listening to this, and then Rory says the thing that killed me the most. Rory says, say my name, Joe. Don't say "To Whom It May Concern." Talk to me. You're 45. Say my name. I don't do that. First of all, yes, you do. Joe does it. Rory does it. Mal doesn't do it. Y'all all got this whole "I'm going to talk about the person without saying their name" thing. You all do that. Rory does that mad times. What is he talking about? They always talking about people and not saying their name, but talking about what they talking about. All of them do that. That's their little Jay-Z calling card. What is he talking about? So Rory already capping with that. But let's talk about this. So Rory, in case nobody else wants to let you know, or if you've forgotten, or just trying to lie to your audience, Mal was talking trash about Joe. That's why Joe Budden went off. Joe Budden only started spazzing because Mal was calling him the thief. Now, whether y'all believe that's true or not, Joe Budden has maintained that he never stole any money from Rory or Mal. So if they want to come out and talk about him and say he's a thief and a cat burglar, you must know that a response is going to come. Now, it's true that Rory has not been going in on Joe after they had their little piece, saved their piece. A couple little jokes here and there, but yes, for the most part, Rory has not gone crazy on Joe. But that does not change the fact that you stand next to Mal, and Mal has. Mal has been saying stuff. He always calls him a thief. He always addresses him as such. He said he'll shake a room before he shake that man's hand. Maul has continued going on. Regardless, it's not all the time, but he has. And to act like you don't understand that and think that Joe's just coming out of nowhere and saying something, or Joe only responding to you because you were talking about the list, it's crazy talk. You know that's not the case. You know the only reason why Joe said something was because Maul was talking trash and accusing him of being a thief again. And again, I'm not here to argue if he is or isn't, but if a man is denying that he's a thief and every time you come out and say something about him, you want to remind he's a thief, then you have to take that he's going to fight against that because he's arguing that he's not a thief. Joe's arguing he's not a thief. And that's what happened in this situation. So I was going to do the pod on Wednesday or Tuesday, put it on Wednesday. Thank God I waited another day. Doing it today, Wednesday, putting out tomorrow, Thursday, which is going to be the day by the time you hear it. It's because Joe had to come out and say some more stuff. And Joe just pretty much obliterated these dudes and told them, look, y'all podcast is trash. Y'all, just furthermore into what he meant by a lot of stuff he was saying, talking about how, they holding microphones instead of using microphone stands. They got all this crazy stuff in the background, like coffee makers and stuff like that. Talking about all the cables and wires that be lopped all over the place. And just talk about how overall they don't try to put as much of an effort to make a good podcast. Broke down how Rory ended up leaving the studio that they were using to make the podcast because they didn't like how his dog was acting, which mirrors a lot of stuff we heard about Rory's dog pooping and stuff all in the house. I think over at when they were at Parks or whenever, if Joe had already got a studio at that point, if they were still at Parks' house. Pretty much Rory picked the dog and they left from that location. So Joe's just going in on them, calling them bare and minimum, because he already said they the bare minimum boys. Now he's saying Rory is bare, Maul is a minimum. And he just going in. Now Rory said, if you keep talking about me, I'm going to let some stuff be known. So now I want to know, is Rory going to say some stuff or was Rory capping? Was it a bluff and Joe called it, or do Rory really got some dirt on Joe? And if Rory got some dirt on Joe, is this going to make Joe shut up, or does Joe got more dirt on them? Who knows? All I know is it's entertaining. I don't know if Rory and Maul will continue on because they're so cool. They don't like to argue about nothing because they're so cool. Even though Maul definitely likes to take his little shots, but then backtrack and be like, I'm too cool for this, man. This is corny, dude. Like, what are you talking about? After you just said that the man was the cat burglar. You was quick to make all these jokes before, but now, Maul's kind of, he throwing a rock and hiding his hands, man. He just crazy dude, man. But I am interested to see what's going on. Rory and Maul's hypocrisy aside. And like I said, this could be entertaining. We all know Joe. He gets in that bag. If Joe comes with the white beater on, let me say it like that because we already know Joe's past. If Joe comes with the white beater on, you already know it's about to be a legendary podcast. He might have to pull that one out the closet. Joe might have to dust off the white beater for this one and give us some bars at Rory and Maul. I'm excited. I hope y'all excited. Let's see what happens.
It's the WACCast podcast. Yeah.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me.
Yeah.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me.
It's the WACCast podcast. Yeah.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me.
Yeah.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me.